Hey everybody, and welcome back to my book club. This is the channel of your favorite, or soon-to-be favorite, bookworm twink supreme. Okay, so today is wrap-up day, and as usual, I am late to the party, but I am fashionably late. Just kidding. Fuck me. Okay, lol. Anyway, I barely read any books this month, last month rather, because this is the wrap-up for May. I actually really liked everything I read this month. This is a first. Spoiler alert. So since I barely read anything this month, I'm gonna compensate by trying my best to spend a little more time talking about these books, but overall this will not have spoilers, okay? Okay, so the first book I want to talk about is Near the Bone by Christina Henry, and this was the perfect combination of both horror and thriller elements. It really pulls off a tough balancing act of making you wonder which genre you're reading up until the bitter end. So we follow this woman named Maddie, who lives in the mountains with her piece of shit husband, and they live this very intense life because they hunt for their own food, and they have to set up traps for these predators so they can hunt them. So one day they stumble upon something in the woods, which makes them think that there's a very large predator around. This is no ordinary predator. So what follows is an intense, cold, dark, and gritty, gruesome tale of survival of both the human body and spirit. This book, to say that this book has reveals and surprise twists is an understatement. If any of you have seen the film Hunter x Hunter, you know the vibes. And if you liked this book and haven't seen that film, go see that film right now. This book and that movie have so many of the same vibes. I'm actually tempted to film another if you like this book, you might like this film video. So let me know if you want to see that video, I guess. So what I loved about this book was just how character driven it was. The more you learn about Maddie, the more you see what this predator in the forest could be a metaphor for. So in addition to the creature violence, you're also made to face the depths of human cruelty in really shocking ways. And Maddie herself is actually a really fantastic protagonist. So without giving anything away, there's also a very well-realized psychological aspect to this story, and this book plays on a lot of the expectations on what a creature feature should be like. This book is also quite short, but it really does pack an amazing punch. It held my attention the entire time. I gave this book 4.5 stars. So the next book I want to talk about is Night Film by Marisha Pessl. I'm just gonna say it, this book is a horror film fan's wet dream. This isn't a book you merely read, this is a book you live in. And no, it's not because the book is 600 pages long and the audiobook is 24 hours long. It's honestly been a while since a book actually captivated me and riveted me this much. So the book begins by telling us that the daughter of this mysterious director named Stanislaus Cordova, who nobody has seen in decades, has taken her own life. Now, this Cordova character is a director whose films are so controversial that they have been banned pretty much all over the world. The only way you could see them is by attending a screening set up by one of Cordova's loyal devotees called the Cordovites. And so we follow our protagonist named Scott McGrath as he begins his investigation into the daughter's death. From there, terror ensues, and Scott is led down a path of mystery and horror in equal measure. So Marisha Pessl just makes everything in this book feel so real. As somebody who loves movies, I was genuinely wishing that these underground Cordova films were actually real films that existed in the real world. I got some shades of David Lynch in Marisha Pessl's writing, especially in her meditation on the film industry and the kinds of audiences this specific genre attracts. But then in addition to the Lynchian aspects, I also got some Darren Aronofsky. If you've seen films like Black Swan and Requiem for a Dream and The Wrestler, you know what vibe I'm talking about. Aronofsky's films have the kinds of protagonists who are so obsessed with something that they literally will sacrifice their physical and mental well-being to pursue that thing to the bitter end, to the most logical conclusion, you know? The characters in this book are also very well-rounded. This takes place in New York City, and I felt like these people were very real. Not just the main characters, but rather all the characters that Scott bumps into. And this book is just perfect in every single way. It's my new favorite thriller. I give it 5 stars. Okay, so next is The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor. This was a book I read for the Book Troop, which is a book club hosted by my very good friend Gabby over at Gabby Reads, and I actually co-hosted this live show with her for this specific book. So some background, I've actually read some of CJ Tudor's work before. I read The Chalkman, and if you've seen my worst of the year video of last year, you know that that was on there, because that book was very bad in my opinion. So I am very happy to say that this book was far better than The Chalkman. The book opens up with this female vicar named Jack Brooks, so that in itself is subversive, and her daughter Flo. They move to this strange town because Jack was assigned to this new church because of some traumatic incident that had happened in her previous parish. And upon arriving, they see that there are these stick girls everywhere, and these stick girls are called burning girls, and they are understood to commemorate the martyrs that were burned during Queen Mary's time. So whilst there, Jack's curiosity and Flo's hormones each drive them to pursue the truths of this creepy town. So I did have some issues with this one, unfortunately. Burning Girls mistakes intricacy for clutter. A lot of this is very well plotted and well executed, but it included far too many unnecessary red herrings and distractions that really didn't have to be in there. They didn't really amount to much in the end. It does deal with themes of alienation and religious bigotry, but I do feel that these themes are definitely addressed a lot better here. It's more nuanced, and because Jack herself is a vicar, goes to show that this comes from a place of more empathy and understanding than The Chalkman. And Tudor really instantly draws us into this world from the very beginning. You have a true sense of foreboding. You could practically hear the cello music playing. But this book was just so overstuffed. There are way too many characters for one thing, and hardly any of them are developed. Some are just literally thrown in there so they could have a plot twist, and so they could build on the character development of our main characters, but they themselves really don't do much in the story to justify them being there. And if you're not invested in these people, it's just really hard to keep track of the story and care about literally anything that's going on, even though it does work in many places. But all in all, this is a solid thriller and a definite improvement from my previous experience with this author. Again, link to the live show will be in the description down below. I gave this book 3.5 stars. So the next and final book I read last month is The Turtle Boy by Keelan Patrick Burke. This is actually the second book I've read from this author, and I actually really did enjoy Sour Candy. So we follow this young boy named Timmy and his best friend named Pete, and this is set in the summertime of Ohio, and these boys are craving adventure in their small town. So one day they're playing in this nearby pond, and they meet this other boy who is about their age, and they find him to be pretty odd, and justifiably so. I'm not gonna give anything away because this is a very short novella. So I really enjoyed this one. I love when authors are able to write believable dialogue for their children characters. The dialogue and the relationship between these two kids was just so well done. I would say that this is Stephen King level good, Nick Cutter level good, if any of you have read The Troop. That amount of amazingness is pretty much done solidly over here. And the dialogue really does highlight how important it is for you to just let kids be kids and explore and use their imagination. I think I read somewhere, actually, that childhood games actually worked in improving a kid's negotiation skills, which is integral to their development into their adult years. I also really liked how he showcased how the dynamic changed when a girl character was introduced. It was definitely reminiscent of conversations that I had had as a child, even though I always secretly wanted to play with the girls because the boys' games were just too physical and confrontational. And I also really thought that the aspect regarding the loss of childhood innocence was also very appropriately bleak in this book, because it tends to get very exploitative in some other books. I'm not gonna name names, but this one was just the right amount. It didn't like go overboard in my opinion. Seeing Timmy witness these heinous acts that man foists upon other man was just heartbreaking to read about, and this leads into the element of grief and how one would go about coping with grief at that young age. Honestly, one of the biggest highlights from this book was the about page at the very end. According to this section of the book, the author actually came out in this film called Slime City Massacre. So just in case you thought this guy couldn't get any cooler, there you go, right? 5 out of 5 stars, great book. Really love this one. Anywho, thank you so much for watching. Like and comment and subscribe. Share this video with your friends, and I will love you forever. But as always, hope you have a lovely day. Hope to see you in future videos, and take care. I lose myself